Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. Setting the intention. That's basically what we're going to talk about today. You set an intention to find us, and here we are. And if you set that intention, you're probably here because you're a caregiver. Maybe you did a search trying to learn more about caregiving. Maybe this podcast came up. We center on that, although setting intentions, that's universal. Regardless, you're going to learn a lot today. And she's somebody that offers coaching to people who are caregivers because it's not an easy situation. There's so much involved there, emotions, effort, static from family members and such, navigating the holidays. And we're going to talk about that today as well. Marika Humphreys back on the program with us. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I'm getting ready to make my own finalize the holiday plans. The parents are in town, and so we'll be kind of setting the schedule for the holiday week, which is like, I can't believe it's next week already. Christmas is next week, which is crazy.
Same. Well, in effect, you said setting the schedule, but you're really setting an intention. The intention is to all get together, correct?
Yes, we will be setting an intention. Well, I think of that as setting the schedule. I will be also setting an intention on how I want to be or what I want to feel during that time.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's how I would kind of distinguish it.
Yeah, I love the word intention because you're already planning it out before you do it. How are you going to react? And you can set an intention to be more grateful. You could set an intention really for anything.
Yeah.
How do you define that? Let's go there. Let's go basic here.
Yeah.
Intention.
Yeah. I think why this is a good tool for the holidays is because we are doing things that we don't do on a regular basis, whether they're gatherings, meals, seeing family members, and it can throw us off our game a little bit. But to your point, when we set an intention, all we're doing is deciding in advance what we want or how we want to feel. And I like actually thinking about it more as how we want to feel, because what we want is, I want to experience a nice meal. Maybe that you can think of it in those terms, but it's really about, I want to enjoy the meal. I want to enjoy my family. I want to be present. I want to protect my energy. Actually, I just had a conversation with a client about this, and she set an intention for her holiday. Now she's in recent grief. She just lost her husband. And that was really helpful for her to think in advance, this is what is most important. We've also talked about setting priorities. So I think setting an intention is similar to saying, this is what's top of my priority list for this period of time or for this day or for this event. And so the holidays being a time when we do those things that we aren't doing the rest of the year and seeing the family members, and it's also a time that we have a lot of expectations and we want a certain feel from it. So I think that's also why it's really good to do that. Decide what your priority is or what's important to you in advance for the holidays.
Is the intention typically something connected to how you're going to feel? Or can the intention be like, I was kind of joking that you were setting your schedule, your holiday schedule, but in effect, it sounded like you were being intentional about getting together. Can it be anything?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess I do think about it often as how you want to feel, but you're right. Like you could have an intention for December that I want to get together with friends I don't see very often, and that's your intention. Like I want to have more. I want to prioritize get-togethers with friends. That's what I'm going to create more of this year. That's important, or this month. That's what's important to me. Or I want to reach out and, talk to my relatives that I haven't talked to in forever, so those are intentions around doing things. creating something, creating a result, creating a get together with friends or connection with your relatives. So yeah, it's a good point. It's really just deciding what you want in advance and thinking about it deliberately. I mean, I think that's the benefit of doing that is one is making the decision that this is what is important, because I think we can put a lot of things on that important list, but until we decide in our mind what we want to be important, it can vie for competition with work and responsibilities and all the other things in our lives that also feel important. But until we articulate it to ourselves, this is what I want to make happen this month, or this is how I want to feel, or what I want to focus on, then it's easy for those other priorities or other things that seem important to get, kind of take over or just get in the way.
So when we look at the holidays, and okay, before I even get there, setting the intention, part of me, I'm a believer in energy. I'm a believer in the way your thoughts go is how it's going to go. You're already, how does it go? The attention goes, the attention goes, the action goes, something like that. By setting the intention, are we already setting it in motion, energetically? That's what, we want. We're focusing on a good outcome, whatever it is.
Yeah. I think the expression, the one that I'm familiar with, which I want to say is Tony Robbins, but he may not have said it first, is where intention goes, your attention goes, something like that. But
okay.
But yeah, when we set an intention, when we decide, that is where our energy and our focus will go. And that's also, and which is why it works, because then it'll be more top of mind, and our mind will already be set to thinking, how can I make this happen? This is what's important. How can I make this happen? So that is why, or kind of the underlying what's happening when we set an intention, when we decide in advance what's important and what we want to prioritize, we trigger the process of making that happen, of bringing that to life, because we're already on the lookout for, how can I make this happen? I will say, as I was thinking about this right before our call, I decided I'm going to just set an intention for our call, which I said, I just want to enjoy the conversation, which I always usually do. So it wasn't a real stretch there for me, but it's funny because just the minute you do that and you take a minute and decide, what do I want from this? You can even do it in a conversation. I mean, maybe a conversation that is hard. You're anticipating a conversation that's going to be hard. I mean, this is a really good one for caregivers, and not really related to the holidays. It can be related to any difficult conversation. And maybe your intention is, I want to really understand where they're coming from, and the minute you say that out loud, or at least in your mind to yourself, you are going to be on the lookout for, it'll keep your focus during that conversation for how to understand them or what they, are trying to say. I mean, it'll prioritize that in your mind during the conversation. And so intentions, that's how they work. They help us bring a thing about by putting them at the top of our mind.
So I wrestle with this based on what we're talking about. And it's part of manifestation, but that's sort of, loosely, I think we're connecting intention to that. I'll think of a situation. Let's say, like this in my mind, this is the way it looks to me. Or meeting a new person in any capacity, maybe it's business related or whatever, personal, whatever. And I'll think about it, and I'll use my intuition, and I'll think, probably going to be this way. Like, that person's going to be this way. That situation's going to be this way. I have to tell you, 90-something%, that's exactly how it goes down. And whether my gut tells me don't do it, sometimes I'll just go anyway to the meeting or whatever it is. I didn't really need to, but just go anyway. Let's see. And on the back end, it's like, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I wrestle with, did I manifest it to be that way? or was it my intuition just telling me that's the way it's going to be?
Often for one, you can't know, but I will say that when we anticipate something, or when what's the word? We're kind of putting on glasses, right? It's like putting on glasses. And so whatever we're priming our brain to see is what we're going to see. So if you have an expectation, and whether that expectation is coming from your intuition or somebody makes a comment or whatever that expectation about what you're going into, you're going to see that because that's what you're kind of priming your brain to look for. You're going to look for the evidence that that's true. And we do that most of the time. We do that subconsciously. Mm-hmm. We have expectations about things that are built in from our culture, from, like a good example of this is if a friend has told you a gossip about somebody that you have never met, and then you meet that person, you can't help but think of, like, especially if it's negative, right? That's going to filter how you view them because it's what your brain knows. And we're just trying to, so you're kind of looking for, oh yeah, they are really arrogant. Like maybe they're not at all. Whereas had you met them in a totally without any,
preconceived
influence.
Notion. Yeah.
Preconceived notion. So we do this with our brain all the time. And sometimes I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's only when it works against us. Right. And I will say with caregivers, this comes up all the time in coaching. And I have a client right now who's, her husband has had cancer for, like a decade, really. And their relationship has increasingly become difficult during that time. And now she's just very frustrated. And she can no longer even see him without all the past frustration and emotion that she has through the relationship. Like her glasses are now of this kind of broken relationship. And why I bring this up is because, he treats her in a way, right? That dynamic has happened. But to other people in their family, they love him. They have a totally different perspective. So, and I mean, it's kind of a good example. Like and it's understandable why she feels this way, but she is seeing him through a filter that she has created. Right. And it's mutual. I mean, it takes two sometimes, but just alone, when we change our own filter, it will change the dynamic in a relationship. So we can enter into the same chaotic family holiday meal where one relative gets drunk and obnoxious and the other one talks too much and one doesn't say anything at all, that you've been in probably, dozens of times in the past. And before you have felt frustrated or annoyed or irritated, you can still go into that same meal and have different thoughts about it and have a different intention and come away with a different experience.
I'm curious about the client that you mentioned. Based on your conversations with her, was everything perfect before he got cancer or?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't. It wasn't. And that's very common. What I see with, a disease or a condition that is serious and impacts someone's health, it often magnifies whatever exists in the relationship and the goods and the bads, right? And often I think it wasn't great, but there were good aspects that are now even hard for her to see. And so that's the...
And that I figured that was going to be the answer. And I met somebody in the last year or so who was with their husband for relatively short period of time, maybe 4 years, 6 or whatever. Yeah. Flip side, things were wonderful. Then he got cancer. And they worked on it together. He eventually passed. But she speaks so highly of him and in a way that he supported her future life. I'm not talking monetarily, just supported her dreams and goals when he's gone, and gave her all of this confidence in herself. Like, kept pushing her, even though he's, taking a hit from the cancer. So, that where I'm going at is it was in a good place. Then the cancer came. So, to your point, things were a little rocky there in the beginning, and absolutely, just what you said, where it magnified the challenges, and in her situation, 4-6 years with somebody, it magnified their love in a way.
Yeah.
It's funny how that all works.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's neat to think, a neat way to think about all of our relationships and our family dynamics is their systems. And in the sense that when you change one part of a system, it has an impact in the other parts of the system. Even if nothing else in the system changes, all the people in your life are all the way they've always been in their goods and bads, but you change. Right. You start thinking differently. You don't respond with, a snide comment when the one relative that always pisses you off says something. Instead, you just let it go, or you don't let it get to you. And that will change things. I mean, that is, as a coach, that's where we focus, is like, we can't change everybody else. But when we change how we react, it does change things. You can't always say exactly how it's going to change things, but it does change things. And in a relationship, it's important to remember, because you can't always get your partner or your spouse to maybe go to counseling or engage, or they're going through their own thing, but how you engage with them will impact things. I've seen it tons of times. And I've seen it myself. Parenting is another example too. It's actually, that's where I the most of my experiences recently are, I have a teenager, so, but I have really changed how I parent in the last several years. And it has impacted our relationship hugely in a positive way. So
I think it's almost universal. What you're saying is I'm thinking the same exact thing. And I had some changes in life and journey and all of that. But not only has it changed me, but the way I react to my kids, and I have teenagers as well. But in reacting, and I was always a very chill person, but I would always worry about things, little things that I didn't even need to worry about. There was not even a reason to worry about them, but I'm still what about,
as we do as parents?
What about if that account goes away? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? There's no proof that it's going to, and everything was fine. Even I took checking on things, had a blood test the other day. I used to hate blood tests. And I'm just giving an example of how you reframe things. Grown man, you would put them off. I'm not alone. I know some of my friends say the same thing. I got one coming up. Let me do it next week, and I'm going to change it. Now, I look at it as fun. I'm good with it because I'm going to learn things, and I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to get information. Maybe it's not going to be exactly what I wanted to hear. Maybe it will be. I just got a text before that. I took labs last week, and something got screwed up, and they forgot to do one test, and we're going to need to come back in. So I'm going back in tomorrow morning. Now, in another life, I would be like, motherfucker.
Yes.
And I was like, whatever. Take 5 minutes. I'll walk in. And they're quick. I don't even have to fast for it. Get it done.
Yes.
But I would put that one off for weeks. Here I am. First thing tomorrow, I'm in there. Point here is your mindset. The shifting of your mindset. If you can do that. Not easy. I'm good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it starts with wanting to. It just simply starts with wanting to. And the good example I have that is kind of recent in my life is I've basically become a runner in this last year. Not something I didn't entirely expect, but my boyfriend, he's a runner, and he looks at going out to run as self-care. And I'm like, what? How do you running is torturous? And I sit there and go, when is it over? When is it over? When is it over? And then I kept thinking, oh my God, he's viewing this as self-care. To him, it's a chance to just feel good and
Yeah.
work out stress and like have a chance to exercise and, and so I started thinking of it like it helped me reframe running entirely to where I'm like, oh, this could be self-care. I'm like, it was just a whole thought that I never occurred to me to have.
Right.
And now I have, I'm like running 5 miles is like no big deal.
You.
Where at that point, I was barely getting through a mile, barely. And it was torturous.
Good for you. Well, guess what?
Reframe helped. Yes.
Reframing and setting the intention. You set the intention for self-care. We're just about out of time.
Yes.
Best way to find you for any of this stuff within caregiving, coaching in general too. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is universal, but it definitely applies to caregiving. Coach Marika.com.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
Marika. You're there to help. You've been there. You understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. We set an
Yeah.
intention to talk about intentions, and I think we did a good job. I'm going to say that.
I think we did too. Yes.
All right. Thanks so much for being here today. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.